Hey everyone, welcome to Bull Battle. Imagine there's a group of people who never run for president, never get voted for, and most kids, and even most adults, don't even know their names. But they have more power over your mom and dad's money than the president or the prime minister. They can make the price of your favorite video game go up. They can make your parents' house more expensive. They can even make the money in your piggy bank feel weaker. They are called central banks. This is their secret history. And I'm going to explain everything like you're 10 years old. Because if a 10-year-old can understand this, you'll understand it better than most grown-ups. So sit down, get comfy, and let's travel through time on Bull Battle. Why central banks were born. A long time ago, in the 1600s, kings and queens loved fighting wars. But wars are crazy expensive. They needed lots of money, gold and silver coins, but they kept running out. The kings had a bad habit. Sometimes they borrowed money and then said, "Sorry, I'm not paying you back." So normal people didn't want to lend them money anymore. Then in 1694, in England, a very smart group of people had a brilliant but dangerous idea. They created the Bank of England. Here's what made it special. The bank was allowed to create paper money, basically IOUs, backed by the king's debt. For the first time in history, there could be more money in the world than actual gold and silver. This was the beginning of the modern banking system. Sweden had started their own central bank a little earlier in 1668, but the Bank of England became the big brother that everyone copied. Simple lesson, whoever controls the money, controls the country. How central banks helped win wars. Fast forward to the time of Napoleon. France and England were fighting huge wars. Napoleon was a military genius, but Britain had a secret weapon. The Bank of England. While Napoleon's soldiers were marching, Britain was printing bonds and borrowing massive amounts of money through its central bank. They could pay their soldiers, buy weapons, and keep fighting longer than France. This taught the world a scary truth. Wars are not won only by soldiers. They are won by the people who control the money. America's messy money problem. Now let's jump to America. For a long time, America didn't have a central bank. Every bank could print its own money. Imagine if every kid in your class could print their own version of Pokemon cards. Total chaos, right? This chaos caused something called bank panics. People would get scared, run to the bank to take their money out, and the bank would run out of money. The biggest one happened in 1907. Banks were failing everywhere. The government didn't know what to do. Then a man named J.P. Morgan, the richest and most powerful banker in America, stepped in. He locked the top bankers in his house for days and basically forced them to save the system with their own money. One private banker saved the entire country. The government was embarrassed. They said, "We need our own J.P. Morgan, but one that works for the country." So in 1913, after secret meetings on Jekyll Island, they created the Federal Reserve, America's central bank. They call it the Fed. It was supposed to be independent, but very close to the big banks in New York. This was one of the most important moments in financial history. World wars and hyperinflation. Then came World War I and World War II. These wars were so expensive that no country could pay for them with normal taxes. So what did they do? They asked their central banks to print money, a lot of money. Germany printed so much money after World War I that their money became almost worthless. This is called hyperinflation. People had to take wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. One story says a kid used money as wallpaper because it was cheaper than actual wallpaper. This showed how dangerous central banks can be when they print too much. The Great Depression, when the Fed failed. In 1929, the stock market crashed. Many people today think the crash caused the Great Depression. But here's the truth most schools won't tell you. The Federal Reserve made it much worse. Instead of helping banks and keeping money flowing, the Fed actually made money tighter. Thousands of banks failed. Millions of people lost their jobs. Families lost their homes. It was a terrible lesson. When central banks make mistakes, the whole country suffers. Bretton Woods. When America became king of money. After World War II in 1944, 44 countries had a big meeting in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. They decided the US dollar would be the king of all currencies. Every country would tie their money to the American dollar, and the dollar would be backed by gold. For almost 30 years, this system worked until it didn't. By 1971, America had spent too much money on the Vietnam War and other programs. Other countries started saying, "We don't trust your dollars anymore. Give us the gold you promised." President Richard Nixon had a choice. He chose to break the promise. On August 15, 1971, he announced that the dollar would no longer be backed by gold. That day changed everything. From that moment on, all money in the world became fiat money, money that only has value because the government says it does. No more gold, just trust. The modern era, the age of unlimited power. Now let's talk about the last 50 years. This is where it gets really interesting. In the late 1970s, inflation was out of control in America. Prices were going crazy. A man named Paul Volcker, the Fed chairman, raised interest rates to almost 20%. It caused a painful recession, but it killed the inflation monster. This proved central banks have godlike power. Then came 2008. Banks did very stupid and greedy things. The whole system almost collapsed. Central banks around the world printed trillions of dollars, euros, and yen. They called it quantitative easing, or QE. They saved the big banks in the stock market, but regular people got hurt. Houses became super expensive. Saving money in the bank gave you almost nothing. Then in 2020, during the pandemic, they did it again, but even bigger and faster. They printed more money in 1 year than in most of history. What happened next? Inflation came back hard. The price of toys, food, cars, and houses went up a lot. Your parents probably complained about it. The hidden truth. Here's what I want everyone watching Bull Battle to understand. Central banks are not neutral. They pick winners and losers. When they keep interest rates very low, rich people with assets, houses, stocks, get richer. When they print lots of money, the money you already have becomes weaker. When they save big companies and banks, they teach them that it's okay to take big risks. This is why we now have an economy that is addicted to central bank help. Every time there's a problem, everyone screams, "The Fed should do something." But every rescue makes the next crisis bigger. Even if you're 10 years old, this affects your life right now. When central banks make money cheaper, the price of everything goes up. That's why your parents say, things are so expensive now. When they make mistakes, people lose jobs. Maybe even your mom or dad. But here's the good news. If you understand this game early, you can win it. This is exactly why I made Bull Battle, to teach you how money really works, how the system really works, and how to protect yourself and build wealth no matter what the central bankers do. The best protection isn't hoping the bankers are nice. The best protection is owning things they cannot print. Real skills, real knowledge, productive businesses, gold and silver, land, Bitcoin in the future. These are things that survive when paper money gets sick. The secret history of central banks is not really a secret anymore. They were born to help governments borrow money for wars. They grew powerful by saving the system during crises. And today, they sit at the center of the entire world like puppet masters. They are not elected. They are not easily controlled, but now you know how they work. If you want to understand the real rules of the money game, if you want to become financially smart while you're still young, then you're in the right place. This is Bull Battle. If this video helped you see the world differently, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The next video is going to be even better. I'll see you in the next battle. Stay smart. Stay dangerous.